We're here again with Julia Washington from Pop Culture Makes Me Jealous, Jelly Pop's Book Club, and her amazing, world renowned business, Prose and Glow, dramatic pause for effect, to talk about what's this? I'm holding space for Wicked again. They got to do 2 movies. So I get to do either bonus content or a whole different episode on it, or I get to talk to as many people as I want to about it until Cynthia, Ariana, and Jonathan Bailey call me and tell me not to. And they're like, Natalie, it's done. We're done. Your space is over. Julia is going to be here to talk to me specifically about Glinda the Good? Question mark on purpose. Julia, thank you for being here to talk to me about a white woman and maybe not all white women. I'm leaving it in our cackles. Our witchy cackles.
Our witchy cat. I am so pleased to be here to discuss Glinda the Good ?
Question mark. Glinda. Glinda?
Glinda?
Glinda the Brave?
The
It's already on.
rebrand, though.
Rebrand. Julia, before we go into
Almost threw over the seats in the movie theater. Go ahead.
before we jump into Glinda personally, would you please explain to the listeners what your personal relationship with Wicked was before the movie dropped?
Okay, so I had never seen the stage show.
Oh, wow.
Because listen, I gotta drive 2 hours to get to Broadway tours. 3 if I decide to take public transportation. And our theater here is trying real hard, but they've never brought Wicked.
High school hasn't done it.
There's no drama teacher brave enough in this town. But I did know that the books existed, and I have not read them because I really loved the Wizard of Oz book.
Yeah.
Originally. And when I first read The Wizard of Oz, because, we all grew up with The Wizard of Oz, the movie with Judy Garland, because that came out in 1939. And you don't have generations now who have lived without it, right?
It used to play every year on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
On the TV.
Yes. And then we have a historic theater that opened in 1934. So one of their things that they like to do is to bring older movies like this to the big screen. So I did get to see it on the big screen one year. We took my best friend and her daughter, and it was really cool to see it on the big screen, because that was not an experience any of us would have had, right? But when I read the book, I was like, I need a mini series because this book is so much more rich than the movie ever could be. No disrespect to the team who did The Wizard of Oz in 1939. We now know all of the horrific truths about Judy Garland and all the things that they did to her. But, there's just so much. There's so much in that book. There's so much social commentary. When people want to say things like, reading isn't political, it's like, I'm sorry, what are you reading?
Also, I didn't say this on the Chris DeRosa episode that this is being partnered with.
The Chris DeRosa portion of this conversation.
Because I'm not sure if this is fact or something I made up. Didn't all, or is this just something that Patti LuPone was mad about during Agatha all along? The Wicked Witch of the West is how we got most of our modern day, at least, characteristics of witches. Am I correct? They were never green until The Wizard of Oz. They never really wore pointing hats until the whole classic Halloween witch look came from the movie adaptation of The Wizard of Oz.
I'm trying to think of older pictorials.
Yeah.
Representation, pictures, drawings, and what have you. And I'm not coming up with anything where they look like our Wicked Witch of the West.
I'm convinced that I read this somewhere.
Because if you think about, even in the Salem witch trial and all the accusations back then, no one's wearing a hat.
No, in the Crucible, they're wearing pilgrim gear.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
but like even with practical magic, I mean,
correct.
yes, in the movie, like in the current part, but when you go back to the 1600s and it's the first Owens woman, like she's still, her hair's flowing and down, like there's no,
Yeah.
yeah,
Another thank you for sharing your background with Wicked, which is mostly The Wizard of Oz.
yeah.
Had you listened to the soundtrack or understood the story before you went to see Wicked?
Yes.
Okay. People who went in blind, I don't understand. I'm like, it's a 3-hour movie and you went, I hope I like this. I didn't do that with Oppenheimer.
That's it's a fascinating study of people who don't have any tap into pop culture, because the musical has been around for what, 20 plus years. Like how do you
No.
avoid it? Because even I knew like and maybe because we watched the Tony Awards every year, so it was just kind of there. Like, because they always do like a, with the Tony Awards, they always do like a snippet from all the shows that are nominated, whatever. And now I can't remember, but it's just like I always knew Kristen Chenoweth was Glinda. Like I always knew Idina Menzel was Elphaba.
Elphaba.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So because I went into my background on Wicked, which I have read the book because I was horny as a young teen and I heard that there were munchkin orgies. And I was like, I want to read about that.
Well, because Christians are very upset about the Wicked book, so I think that has a lot to do with why I haven't read them, because
That's
they
right.
were released in the mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
So I
No.
was,
Oh, maybe. Yeah. Because I read it because I went and saw the stage production as a teen.
yeah, 1995. So Wicked was published in 1995. So it tracks that it wouldn't have been brought into my house because 1995 we were steep in that Christian church.
I'll give you a personal connection with The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
The first time that I ever watched The Wizard of Oz as a child, it was at my grandma's house, and my uncle lived with my grandma, and he he looked at me and like a white man who just loves to take credit for something he's never even probably looked at, he went, when it goes from black and white to color, I did that with the Crayola crayons that you color with every day. He goes, I
Why did why do men feel like they need to say shit like that?
and I just like looked at him. He's like, I did with those very crayons that you were using. And like men think that they're so funny.
I just don't understand.
Sir, just let me enjoy Munchkin Land. So that's my connection to the Wizard of Oz. But when you went and saw Wicked, you had what I would describe. I mean, I had an emotional reaction to it. I cried the entire movie. But you had a specific emotional reaction to Galinda,
Mhm.
and it had nothing to do with her casting. Like, I don't think
Mhm.
this was an Ariana problem. This was
Mhm.
a Galinda problem.
Strictly.
And would you like to give an overview of what that was?
My immediate reaction, so the whole movie, right? Galinda's like, I'm the most perfect girl in the world. I did everything. I'm going to be the teacher's pet. I'm so talented. I can't wait to be a witch. And then when she realizes that somebody who doesn't fit the bill is better than her, and she's mad and turns everyone against her. And then when she's like, oh, actually, I think I'm going to be her friend so I can get closer to what I want by being her friend. And then chooses to walk away from her when she's like, well, I could pick you, or I could pick the people I've been trying to shove my nose up their ass this whole time.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that is a lot. This is a little too real. I have had that happen in my real life from white women
Mhm.
specifically multiple times. Two, in fact, that still haunt me to this day that I need to go to therapy over. And I walked out, and so while everyone's weeping during Defying Gravity, I'm crying because I'm like, when will white women stop?
White women write in. When will you stop?
Because the whole time, I was like, we all know Glinda's bad, right? Like, she's just doing whatever she can to get cozied up to the wizard and Miss Morrible. And, like, she doesn't care about Elphaba. She never once said, I'm going to become a better person. She just said, yeah, let's be friends. It's cool. She never said she was going to do the work. She never said she was going to be somebody that Elphaba could trust. She just played the part beautifully. So then when Elphaba did realize she could trust her because of these tiny little actions, so rather than staying true to her gut, poor Elphaba, because Elfie just wanted friends, because she's never had friends, because she's been rejected her whole life because her dad is mean and her sister was the favored girl. And here's Elfie just trying to, like, I just want to know what it's like to be included. Yeah. And then here's Glinda, who's just like, I don't want you to be included because I'm intimidated by you. And then when she does include her, it's only to gain access to what Elphaba has access to.
Yeah.
I was
Now,
like, if this isn't a metaphor for Black women everywhere or women of minority, right? Minority women everywhere, because I'm sure there are women who aren't just Black who feel this way.
I feel like when you break it down that way, I think about my fat girl trauma, like my
Mm,
like never being the pretty friend and like having like just having some real pretty privileged friends
yeah.
who were like, "Well, I'll never have the personality that Natalie has," and who could? And people really like Natalie, and they've maybe come to terms with me being boring
Mm,
and just kind of always being like a LeFou sidekick to some better looking girl.
hmm
To the point where, I mean, I talked about this in the Chris episode too, but during one of my shifts at McDonald's, I got to sing "What Is This Feeling" with my pretty girl nemesis, who used to be my best friend and then dated the very guy I had any hopes of dating. Because why wouldn't they? Because why wouldn't she be entitled to anything and everything I could ever want? And there is something that's really interesting that the queer community is doing with Galinda, where they're like, when I watch Galinda, I see like a self hating queer woman.
Oh, that's interesting.
And Ariana and Ariana came out with it first, and Kristen Chenoweth said, "You know what? I always thought that a little bit too." But Ariana said she was like, "I was playing Galinda as a closeted woman. Like there was a little bit about her that was closeted." And Renee Rapp did the same thing with Regina George, and it completely flips. So like, why is a girl
Yes,
got to be mean if it's not because you hate yourself because of the
right.
one way that you are going to be othered?
Right, because why el okay, first of all, I can't believe that part of Wicked TikTok didn't show up in my FYP, considering how much I consumed. Especially, but also not surprised because a lot of what I consumed about Wicked was Jonathan Bailey. But
In
it's
them
fine.
thighs.
In them thighs. Go back to Australia when it's cold here and be in suits with shorts. Okay. But that actually kind of, I think, also contributes to what I'm saying, because a lot of, and I'm making some generalizations here, so not everyone's going to fit, but when you look at the broader picture and you are sort of trying to create these like general ideas of what is happening, there is a lot of very interesting moments within white women community where self-hate is part of it, because it's like, and wherever that self-hate stems from, right? Like maybe it is being closeted, maybe it is not being, it's something about not being able to self-actualize fully, right?
Mhm.
Because we see that a lot still. Like we're like with the election, like why did so many white women still vote in that way? And it's like, it doesn't matter if you spout some sort of feminist something,
Yeah.
there's still a point about your life that reaffirms patriarchy and inequalities, and there's something that you are fearing and trying to change that, whether it's because this you recognize this the system isn't designed for women to be single. I'm living proof. I've tried so hard to like be a wealthy woman. It's
We're trying so hard.
We're trying so hard. I did, you and I have had this conversation. We've done all the things we were told to do, but yet it still didn't work for us because we didn't get the golden ticket to be the one girl allowed at the table for that, right? Because
Right.
the system isn't designed for women to be successful. And all the women who do become successful, they do it as an act of defiance, and you're just like, oh, somehow you have to do deep analysis on figuring it out. And I'm going to broadly say probably 80% of the time there was a dude who opened the door for them. And then the women who had women opening the doors for them don't get the same kind of appraise and attention, which is infuriating. Um, but it makes sense that there would be some sort of self-hate towards your behaviors and actions of other people. And we see that. We see that in legislation. Like our favorite example, the RNC crashing Grinder.
Yeah.
But yet the Republican Party is guilty of introducing over 400 pieces of legislation that are anti-LGBTQ.
Mm-hmm.
So your self-hate is that you have some sort of queerness within you and you're denying it.
Right. And you're like, if it's illegal, I never have to face this,
Which is not true.
which is not true. And my running joke about the Wicked movie is I really thought that because I've seen Wicked twice. I read the book. I've listened to the soundtrack so many
You've
times.
seen it on stage twice.
I've seen it on stage
So I was
twice.
to say, girl, I know you've seen the movie more than that.
I've seen the movie 3 times, and I could not be done seeing it, like,
Yeah.
honestly. Um,
Yep.
but I started to cry from the very first No One Mourns the Wicked, because I think part of the ugly truth of my current situation and my current life is I've gotten over enough of my fat girl trauma to
Mhm.
also be like, oh, but now my otherness and my wickedness comes from the extremeness that I've gone to decenter men in a world that's
Mm.
built for men and in a world where it pays to partner with men and befriend men and play their game and play their system. And oh, there is like, I don't even know how to phrase this, but when it's like no one mourns the wicked and goodness knows the wicked lives are lonely. Like how often have I used the word lonely to
Mhm.
describe how this journey has made me feel? I've met so many people through the podcast and my decentering patriarchy, misogyny, capitalism, and all of it. And I've met people with the same beliefs, but at the end of the day, when they don't go to the defying gravity lengths that I'm willing to go to, like the 4B movement, or to tailor my comedy towards making fun of misogyny instead of making tit and dick jokes because I know they sell, like, then I'm mad and I'm lonely and I'm on a broom by myself.
It's interesting that you say that too, because the women that I know that are married and unhappy are also lonely. So it's like, pick your poison. Are you going to be alone, lonely, protecting your peace? Or are you going to live in an environment where you still just don't feel like you can be you? Because it's easier, or I'm using easier in air quotes because that income, and I've, complained about this to you all the time. Like, I hate taking business advice from married women because your risks aren't the same as mine, because I don't have a husband who's providing health insurance for me and paying and has income coming in so that way I can take big financial risks with the money that I earn. Like, I earned a lot of money in November. None of it is left because I have bills to pay and I have a kid in college. So, like, I would have loved to save all that money, but I have to live off of what I earn every single day. You buy from me on a Tuesday, I'm probably using that money to pay for electricity, groceries, putting gas in my car. Like, it's not the same. And the thing is I think, and I'm not speaking for you, but we've been friends long enough that I feel like this will, like, you fall into this as well. We've accepted the fact that we'd rather be alone and it be okay, because we know that we can live the lives that we want that are full than be living in a situation or partnered in a situation that's going to make us have to suppress parts of ourselves that we find delightful.
Yeah. And I think it's gonna be really interesting next year, when I have you back to talk about Galinda the Good again in regards to part 2, mostly
Mhm.
because I know that you haven't seen it visually,
Right.
but, like, Galinda's gonna fuck around and then find out. And so that really does tie in about how, like, even it's not even that I envy the women who quote unquote have it easier because they sided with patriarchy, misogyny, mediocre husbands, dating men who can't remember their birthday or whatever, because I know that they're lonely too. It's like I, like Elphaba, assume that if we stopped seeking their validation and if we stopped seeking power in the ways that they've set up their own power or in partnership with them, that we too would be unlimited because we would have created I just believe that women would create a better system. No cap.
And I think that it's not just you thinking that I if memory serves, and I'm not an economist, there is data out there that supports that. Women who run Fortune 500 companies, their companies perform better. You know, a lot of women leaders do a lot better. I have a question for you. Are you familiar with who Francesca Ramsey is?
I am a follower of
Okay.
Francesca Ramsey. I've seen oh no, the is it the jaguar or the tigers?
The leopards have
The
eaten
leopards
their
ate.
face.
Oh no, I never thought the leopards would eat my
I
face.
mean, that is the most brilliant song ever. And it's so fitting because there are these moments. So, like, we talk about this a lot. Or I talk about this a lot with my friend groups that are, colorful and queer. My straight white friends don't get it. We about proximity to whiteness and how there's this belief that proximity to whiteness will save you when these things happen, but what we see over and over and over again is that it actually doesn't protect you. Turns out you're the first in line for the firing squad,
Yeah.
because like the concept of the good quote negro is not real. Like, it's not a safety net. And so what's brilliant about Francesca writing that song is that now we have a literal anthem. So when something happens, we can be like, well,
Oh my gosh, it's almost like you got into bed with a leopard.
yes. And the other part of that song that's so brilliant is like people genuinely believe that if they sidle up to patriarchy and whiteness, nothing bad will ever happen to them. And maybe for some that is true because they keep a low enough profile to live within those systems to not be harmed. But it's the harm is in a different way, right? The harm is now to you in a different way versus the blatancy of the harm when they decide to like line them all up and shoot them all down.
And I think my biggest emotional release when it comes to defying gravity is like in the back of my mind, it's like I didn't even ask fellow white women for much. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't ask you to partake in the 4B movement. I didn't ask you to get divorced. I didn't ask you to shun men, to revitalize how you raise sons. I didn't even ask you to read a book. I asked you to not vote for a rapist on a ballot, and you
Right.
couldn't bring yourself to do it because you had to have dinner that night with your homophobic, racist, bigoted husband
Mhm.
who is probably doing a lot of things subtly, subconsciously, purposefully to keep you reliant on him. And this was
Mhm.
one way you could have been like, and maybe this will have nothing to do with me, but I'm not going to vote for the rapist.
Right. Right, because yeah. I mean, all the women who got on TikTok and was like, eggs shouldn't be, as expensive as they are, and that's why I voted for him. And like, I had somebody flat out tell me, well, the our Christmas tree cost $130 this year because they had to have two people in the truck driving all the trees from the farm to the location to buy. And, and so, when he wins, gas is going to go down and labor costs are going to go down. And I'm just like,
For who?
but also, like, truck drivers need to have protections. Like,
Yes.
business companies would allow truck drivers to drive 15-hour shifts, which we know AAA has done studies that have shown you should take breaks if you're going to do a long haul drive. Like, the more tired you are, there's no difference. You might as well be drunk because there's no difference in terms of safety. So it's like some of the things that are being considered logical coming from the side that voted for him. It's like, no, but let's actually talk about that. Like, I know I'm not an economist. I don't understand what you're saying. And it's not because I'm not an economist. It's because it doesn't actually make sense.
Well, and do you know what's so stupid about it? It's a tree that you're gonna have in your house for a month. If you really cared that it was $130 and the price went up, you would have bought the $60 one from Michael's that you can use for the rest of your life.
And it's just so interesting, like, this whole concept of, like, um oh god, and my favorite part is he's backpedaling on, well, I
On
don't
the
think I can
prices.
bring prices down, which is whatever. We all knew that was coming. I mean, we all knew that was coming. People on TikTok are surprised. Um, but I think the other part of it too for me is, like, sometimes I have to make decisions that aren't gonna be good for just me.
Mhm.
And, like, there is no, like, the individualism that exists with folks who maybe chose to vote in that way. Have you seen that TikTok of the woman who was like, black women watching the Defying Gravity, and then, like,
Yes.
list, and then Jewish women watching the
That's why
Defying
that's
Gravity?
why I'm so surprised you haven't gotten to Glinda's a closeted queer woman
Right,
kind of TikTok.
honestly, and then, like, white women not getting it, and I'm just like, yeah, because it is very. I Here's the thing, I don't understand why white women can't figure out how to mobilize.
I don't Julia, I don't know.
They would actually be able to get shit done, because the way my white female friends get shit done otherwise, I'm just like, collectively do that for the all all intersections of people who
Well,
identify as women.
and what floors me is if white women started to mobilize, we would have days, weeks, months, if not years before white men even started to notice because white men are so comfortable that they never question anything about their own surroundings.
Okay, so I tried to watch Bad Moms Christmas last night. First of all, it didn't need to be 2 hours. I literally
Ew.
bailed at an hour and a half because it's like, I've seen enough. But this whole concept of, like, invisible labor, and I'm not downgrading any of this. What And maybe I'm missing the message of Bad Moms Christmas. But one of the things that I took away this time versus 7 years ago when it first came out when it first came out in 2017, was how, like, Mila Kunis's character Amy is very much like, we are doing this to ourselves and we don't have to. And I'm like, yes, that's absolutely correct. And then her mom comes in and is just like, yes, you do have to. And then the children are like, yeah, we're cool with the casual Christmas, but also we love grandma. Like, please let us keep grandma. And it's like, but grandma's going to be extra. So we have to find balance. But, like, so many women are like, no, but I have to create magic for my children. And I'm like, but do we though? But do we though? Because if we're going to establish unrealistic expectations, it should be that men should do better.
Well, and also like the magic always ends with you cursing and crying at those children.
And then when your kids become adults, because I'm currently experiencing this in adulthood, you openly admit how actually you hated doing all of that stuff. And then now your kids have to grapple with the fact that, like, wait a minute, what about my childhood is a lie?
And it turns out all of it.
So it's like, what is it? No one's thinking about the long term. And
No.
I think to tie it back to Wicked, that's kind of the same, right? Like, Galinda was thinking about the long term for her own benefit and gain versus Alphaba, who's like, I'm just trying to make the world better. I have skills and talents that no one recognized except for Mrs. Marble, and that's wild. And then And then to realize that fucking snakes oil
Yeah.
salesman. And like just the whole like the deconstruction of like I thought the root of humanity was good, and then to learn it from Alphabet's perspective, and then to learn that it's not
No.
actually, and that I've been used, and now I'm being deemed bad because I stood up, and not because it was morally right or anything, but because my character is to speak. I've never known any other way other than to say like, wait, what?
Because at the very base of it, and I always feel this way as like a radicalized white woman. I'm like, at the end of the day, my most radical viewpoint, if I'm Elphaba, is that animals should continue to get to speak. Like that's it. And
Yeah.
like that's as radical as it gets. And and if the wizard had been on board with that, if the wizard was like, "Hey, listen, this has all gotten out of hand. Like I got to Oz, they watched me do some up close magic. They were like, "A wizard." They built me
Wait,
this real
it wasn't even real magic.
No, it was up close hand magic. That's what they
Yeah.
call magicians at kids' parties.
Got it.
When
Okay.
when he literally
Remember, I
pulled
grew up in a Christian
I know,
environment.
you
Okay.
didn't get to see magicians, but
No, they weren't allowed.
when he pulled the coin out of her ear, I literally whispered to myself when I was seeing the movie by myself, "Not up close magic."
Well, okay, so I guess I didn't understand that that's what that was. Because my grandpa used to always give us quarters and he would pull them out of our ears. And I was just like, oh, that's so funny. It's a grandpa trick.
Yeah.
So
Most
I,
magicians start with grandpa tricks.
oh my God.
Wizard crashes into Oz because of reasons. Julia read the book. um, and he starts doing like up close magic, and they're like, "Oh, wizard!" And then they build him this really nice house in town. And I get it. Like you're like, this is really nice. It's too bad it's all a scam. And again, and I talk about this all the time when it comes to our villains, where it's like, when were you just kind of the doof, and then all of a sudden it snowballed? Like,
Hmm.
and Galinda, I think, mirrors that too. When it was like, when were you just kind of like a shallow girl
Hmm.
who had the world at your fingertips, and then all of a sudden it got out of your hand? Like,
I also think, but I think for me, the first little divot in her little glass bubble, um, was when Mrs. Morrible was like, "Yeah, I'm not into you,"
yeah,
and she was like, "What?
yeah.
You're not into me?
Into
But
Mew?
I am exactly what you need." And watching pick me girls not get picked is a show.
It's a show. She had to lay down. And so I always think about that when it comes to the wizard, where it's like, okay, I understand how you were kind of just a guy. Like you were just a guy at the beginning of the day. And then you were like a guy who had like three tricks that probably all involved scarves or coins. And people really thought that you were something. And then you looked around and you're like, it's not great here. So then you became president. Like,
Yeah,
I get it.
it's really easy to trick people who don't have an education.
Who are in a scarcity mindset because the drought happened. It was a scarcity thing. And we have seen this happen before. And so I understand how it all became, you became a guy that became the face of Oz, and you had to build a big robot of yourself that was scary. Like, I understand where we got here. I don't understand why your pivot, and this is where I blame Miss Marable.
Hmm.
I don't understand why your pivot wasn't, I will surround myself with smart people and we will figure out all of the ways to do the right thing, which I think is what AOC keeps wishing Congress would do.
Would do. Yeah, there's too many men in Congress for that to happen.
Like, I think AOC is like, what if we just surrounded ourselves with smart people and then did the right thing? But instead, he got mixed up with Marable, and she was like, we could just keep high rolling this and be the only people who are doing well. And it's like, and at the end of the day, it's like, for what?
Yeah.
You're o-
Yeah.
your only friend is Miss Marvel and then all of these monkeys that resent you.
Can I just say, like, the gonna be a literal bitch. The way that Cynthia Erivo plays the realization that she just like harmed these monkeys unintentionally, that also got me really emotional because again, she's just trying to make sure the animals can continue to have quality of life.
Mhm.
She knows they're not the bad guy. She knows they're not the problem. And then to inflict such pain. But then when they all sort of in the end side with her, I was like, that's the right answer.
Because she had the correct, response to accidentally hurting you. Because also, like, at the end of the day, we're all human, even if you're as radicalized and as well-meaning as you can be, there will be a chance that you do harm. I make a lot of jokes before I think about what I'm about to say, and there have been a couple of instances where a Gen Zer has had to go, and are we all okay that Natalie made jokes about the pills that the frat boys like to hand out? And I'm like, what? We're not okay with making fun of the frat boys and their pills? I get real indignant about it.
I do wonder though about origin stories for villains and how people might be maybe misinterpreting them.
Oh, like this whole like every villain was just a boy whose dad was mean to him one time and then got a better looking brother, and that's how we got Scar and the hyena regime.
Mhm. Yeah, there's that, and then, like, in It Ends With Us, because, I did end up watching the movie, because I can't resist Justin Baldoni's face, and, his origin story is, like, he's in pain because, he's the reason why his sibling is dead from childhood, and he's got all this unresolved issues with it, and you're just like, "Cool, I also have some really horrible things that have happened in my life, and,
And I somehow didn't manage to turn it into violence against other people.
through the grace of therapy, friends saying things like, that's actually not how we should treat each other, like, what you went through is bad," and, like, other things, and just somebody taking a moment to be like, "I am so sorry that happened to you, like, how are you dealing with that?" Versus, "I don't give a shit what you're going through. We all have pain. Figure it out." And it's just like there's got to be a marriage between kid gloves and harsh responses because I think I think with Alphaba that was a her realizations of like she had childhood trauma, like her dad didn't like her, he prioritized what we assume to be his natural daughter. I don't know if that's true. I'm just making an assumption that that he was like, I don't like Alphaba, but this one is actually mine when it came to Nessa. Um, and like Alphaba did not necessarily create the situation. She didn't create the situation. The situation created her. Literally, the situation created her because they all said, "Hey, there's this green hoe on a broom, and she's the bad guy." Versus earlier in the movie when you're like, "Wow, your dad is garbage to you, but yet you're still a kind and generous and caring person who has boundaries," because she was not about Glinda in the beginning.
I think also, like, it all boils down to that meme that people love to send me, where it's like a woman on Christmas Eve could have an ovarian cyst burst, coupled with a migraine, coupled with her husband leaving her for the secretary, coupled with her mom dying. And on Christmas Day, those kids are going to have the Christmas that they've always had, and everything's going to be fine. And she almost bled out to do it. But a man's father was mean to him one time when he was 11, and now the world has to burn. Like, he's hurt everyone he's ever talked to. Like, he voted for Trump because he's like, this guy gets it. And we're all punished because of it. And what oh my god, what did I just likened this to a guy. Who was the guy? I was like, oh, it was Derek Shepherd. It was Derek Shepherd from Grey's Anatomy.
Oh, okay. I don't know this reference, but continue.
I know you don't know this reference, but I was like, "Well, who was the guy?" Derek Shepherd, made choices, and he chose Addison instead of Meredith, and then punished us for 2 seasons when Meredith did things like moved on and no longer cared about how his day was. And it's like, "Hey, Derek." Meredith didn't wake up and go, "You should choose Addison." Meredith actually cried and begged you to pick her. And
Is
then
this
you
the pick me, choose me, love me
yes,
speech?
pick
Okay, I know
me,
that speech.
choose
Yeah.
me, love me. When I rewatched it this time, I said it right there with her. I'm like, "Meredith, this is all I'm asking women to do.
Yeah.
Pick yourselves." And punished us because it's like I as you know, the biggest frustration for me this election is that I keep ending up on TikToks where women are telling me, "How'd you think that election was going to go? We abandoned men." And I was like, "That's really strong language for people who are gonna make it out of this okay. We abandoned men. There's a loneliness epidemic in men. The men are not okay." It's a lot of their own choices, and I don't know anymore how to get them to care about other people. I don't. I could tell men who have supposedly cared for me my entire life, "Hey, if you elect the rapist, I could die. A lot of people I know are no longer safe. I won't have access to health care. You keep begging me to have health insurance. It's not going to happen under this dude." And at the end of the day, they'll be like, "I love you so much." And then vote for that Oompa Loompa.
I guess so. I have two things that I want to comment on. I'm going to work my way from this, what you said, and then back to something else you said.
Got it.
I don't understand how we've abandoned men and how to interpret that without it being some version of women gaining independence and autonomy.
Because that's what it is. Every time people are like, "We've abandoned men, we've villainized them, we've made them believe that they're the problem," because they're the problem.
Because here's the thing, we all know the patriarchy is actually bad for everybody because the amount of insane pressure to be the breadwinner of the family, I've felt that before. I feel that all the time. Again, I'm also not making other people's lives hell because
And that's
it's
something.
not it's not working. Um so there's that, but there's also a balance in there too, right? Like you can care for men but still have an equitable relationship. So this all comes down to communication and people not talking about what their expectations are in marriage, because like what we see represented in pop culture, like if I were to enter into a relationship that resembled what I grew up watching, fuck no.
No.
Absolutely not. Absolutely 100% not. Because here's what I don't want. I don't want to be thrown under the bus. We are a united front. If you are my partner, we are a united front on things. We don't have to agree, but we have to agree on how we are going to present in this issue. Because if I stand up for myself and your response is like, yeah, it's a pain in the ass. She's like that all the time. We're not suited for each other. And that's the bare minimum.
The bear.
And like, and there's like a way that you can like, you know, have expectations in a relationship. Like compromise is a thing, but not so much so that I have to sacrifice entirely who I am. Yeah, we need
Well,
it.
we because as you know, the younger men who we thought had hope, they voted in large numbers for Trump too. And then it's like, well, because Andrew Tate and Jeff Bezos and Joe Rogan all cater to the inner incel, I guess, that resides in all of them.
But
And
but it's not just them. They are also, the quote machine is also finding very pretty female
yes,
conduits to speak to these boys as well. Yeah.
correct. And like it's all about alpha and being macho and blah 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 blah.
And that's so toxic because not all men want to be alpha and macho. They just want to exist as well. So then, and anyway,
Right. And by the
back
way,
back to
the
why the patriarchy is bad for everybody.
the men who are truly allies and not the men who want me to believe that they're allies so they get me in bed, because there's a difference.
Hmm.
um, if I looked at them and went, "Can you believe that this lady is saying that men were abandoned and that's why we lost the election?" They'd be like, "What the fuck?" Again, it's centering men into a problem that is affecting me that they themselves caused. Why do I have to baby them through the problem that they themselves caused? Derek Shepherd way in.
Yeah, yeah.
And it
Okay, so oh, go
Oh,
ahead.
go for it because you had 2 points.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say the other thing, the childhood pain becoming personality. There's a difference between pain in little T trauma and big T trauma. And when you were talking about, like the one time I had a parent yell at me and be mean to me, and now I'm an awful, and this explains why I'm awful to everybody. One of my relationship friendships that fell apart, her childhood trauma, and I don't know what T it is because I don't know the extent of it, was because her parents got a divorce. With that said, even though divorce wasn't promoted as being normalized in my home, my parents were married for 53 years. Both of my grandparents remained married until death. Like, this is, divorce is not a common practice in my family. However, I am an unwed single mother. Um, but the point being, I still understood divorce as being a thing that happens because everybody had divorced friends. Like, we were not immune to having divorced friends. We were not, the statistics or whatever. And so the way that even in our late adolescence, early adulthood, even through starting to be mid 30s, the way this person held on to her parents' divorce as being a source of pain for her all these years later, it got to the point where I was just like, you have to go to therapy. I can't talk about this anymore. You have to go to therapy. We've been talking about this for 20 years. You have to go to therapy. like if this is the reason why you're constantly in pain and making relationship decisions based on this route, you have to go to therapy.
Right.
You just have to go to therapy because it's like, I don't know what your parents put you through living with this for that long without having any sort of like treatment for it is not okay.
Well, and I think what I get frustrated with is
And here's the thing. I know for a fact there was no child neglect, there was no physical abuse. There's probably emotional abuse. Our parents, there's no way as a parent you can get away with not accidentally or intentionally, like, intentional emotional abuse is one thing, but there are some things where you're just like, fuck, I think that might have been emotional abuse and I'm so like I'm guilty, you know what I mean? Like, you inflict pain. You might stop generational traumas in some way, but you create traumas in others because that's just what happens. But what I'm saying is like, there's a point where it's just like, this could have, not that I'm trying to give a hierarchy of pain. As you get older, you start to become like a moment of like, listen, I don't want to trivialize what you've been through. I also need you to know that genocide is real and that is not your childhood. So go and get therapy.
right. Well, and I think that's what frustrates me the most is when people come to me, and these are all very valid concerns that drive me to a point of madness every day, where it's like, well, men and their emotional intelligence, and they weren't brought up to care about their emotional intelligence or their mental well being or whatever. And it's like, yes, but within the system, they themselves chose because I
Hmm.
don't see a lot of them.
Yeah, isn't there that video floating around where the guy was like, men, we struggle too, and da da da. We're the ones that go to war. We're the ones that do this. We're the ones that do that. And then the person, a woman counters with, and who made that system?
Who made that
And
system?
the guy was like, oh, the answer is, like, you could clearly see him be like, realize, oh, the answer is men. But if I say that out loud, I'm proving her point, and that negates my point.
Correct. There's a difference between the hurt that comes from your choices and the hurt that's inflicted upon you due to your otherness, oppression, or the system that is designed to hurt you
Yeah.
or keep you down or keep you lonely.
Yeah.
And I don't see, and even Justin from It Ends With Us, Mr. Positive masculinity himself, Mr. Breaking barriers and toxic masculinity left and right. I don't trust him. I did for a little bit. and then this and then the It Ends With Us movie happened and I was like, not you. Not I don't trust you. I don't see enough of them genuinely going, if the system hurts women and children, and we've just decided that we're okay with that, if the system hurts people of color and the queer community, and we've just decided we're okay with that, do we at least get to the point where we also care that the system hurts us? And now we're going to change it, and we're going to see it with the UHC pew pewing. I don't know how to say it on a
Mhm.
podcast,
Mhm.
where all of a sudden there will be gun regulation because it took one guy to go down.
I don't think there will be.
Well, yeah, there won't.
There won't be. There needs there needs to be more for pew pew regulations to happen in this country. More people in the privileged class would have to be victimized
Correct.
because what was it? December 15th. I the date could be wrong. December 15th. There was a school shooting a week before the winter break starts.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
the only reason why I knew about it was because of TikTok.
mhm. I can't
I did
even
not
name where it was.
I did Wisconsin. I
Thank
did
you.
not see it. I saw it on TikTok before I saw any news outlet reporting about it. And I'm just like, yeah.
So,
So more people of the privileged class are going to have to be victimized before anybody is going to make a decision because it's the privileged class who controls the purse strings of who
yeah,
gets elected. Oh, no, I'm just sounding like a weirdo, but the point is like,
that is what happens though. Um, so I think my point is we have to start being realistic with who we're working with, and we're working with people who are willing to end the lives of their own to feel more comfortable at the end of the day, which is what the wizard is doing. Which
mhm.
is, I don't know if Glinda knows she's signing up for that. Like, but we're
See, and
look
that's where we're different. I do think she knows that's what
do you
she's
think
signing
she
up
knows?
for. Mhm.
And I wish that more people saw the Wicked movie and started walking differently like Fiero does once he has a thought in his head, where all of a sudden he's like, wait, I'm mad that maybe the privileges that I dance through life with got a baby lion into a cage, and that bothers me. And it bothers me enough to wear a poppy every day and to change the way that I have walked. I'm no longer dancing through life.
Have you seen those videos where people are criticizing the fact that he like supposedly had this emotional change because no one in the privileged class would ever? And I'm just like, therein lies part of the problem on why we can't actually break anything away. Because now, if somebody really does feel moved, who is in, grew up in a privileged lifestyle and they do feel moved by injustice, you're now making fun of them for feeling some kind of way. Like they're they're new here in this
Right.
regard.
They gotta walk before they can fly.
Yeah, like
No one's putting Piero on on the broom.
yeah, like I'm not saying I want to help them become more actualized because that's a lot of emotional labor.
It is.
I'm just saying like if someone's like, that doesn't set well with me and I need to figure out why, don't judge them and
No,
make
because
them feel bad.
it's literally what I pray for every night and wish for when I blow out any candle. I'm like, if only 5 of them would wake up and realize, oh, there are other people around. And those people don't have my same circumstance or experience, instead of focusing on all of the things that went wrong for them.
Yeah, and why is that? Like why is it that, like what am I trying to say? Why is it that okay, cuz here's where I'm coming from. So when men do have emotions and feel emotion, there's a subsect of women who are like, "Oh, I don't like that you're crying." But yet they also want a man who understands who has emotional intelligence.
It's weird.
So make that make sense, because we are not helping the scenario when we are rejecting the men who do actually feel and have emotional intelligence. But when we objectify them because they're famous and are publicly speaking, like there's a disconnect here. Like I
Mhm.
don't know what it is. I don't know how to work through that, but that exists. But then in cases of people who maybe don't experience pain or hardship or difficulties that aren't things like if your parents get divorced and it now means that you and your mother are living in poverty versus your parents are getting divorced and that man is paying your mother alimony so your lifestyle doesn't have to change, two different types of pain.
Yeah.
But like, let Fiero realize we need the people who live in the systems to realize and be accepted so that way they can help us chip away at the system.
Correct. Because do you know what I appreciate the most about Fiero's change, I guess we'll call it,
His evolution.
his evolution, if you will? He was just a boy sitting in a class
He's
watching
so
a
pretty.
so pretty with them thighs. Um watching a tiger cub cry and he was like, "I don't actually like this." And it had nothing to do with him. It had
Correct.
nothing to do with his taxes. It had nothing to do with his 401k. It had nothing to do with his standing as a prince or as the fuckboy of shiz. He saw a lion in pain and he went, "There's something small I can do about this." And then it started to snowball in his head where he's like, if that lion cub was crying, are there other lion cubs crying places? Wait, is the system bad? Hold on. John Cena made a movie about it on Prime. Like where he was like, "Wait, is the system bad?"
Because again, you don't know it's bad unless you experience the badness. That's not
Right.
the way I want to say that, but you know what I mean. Right? Like I know what it's like my reaction to Galinda
Uh-huh.
is because of my lived experience.
Right.
And getting on TikTok and watching women be like, "Oh my god, I relate to Alphaba." But I'm like, "But you're white. How do you relate to Alphaba?" You're probably more of a Galinda and you don't want to accept that.
And I think that wherein lies the difference of Fiero and Galinda is he had the emotional capacity and the character, the inner character to watch something happen and not think about himself in that moment.
He
Where
fully gets Elphaba out of harm's way.
he does. He and then
Whereas Galinda's like, girl, like she's conflicted. I mean, she
yeah,
eventually does help, but she's conflicted the whole time. Fierro is not conflicted in where he needs to be.
right, where there is still a part of Galinda that will watch all of this go down and be like, "But how do I make my fortune off of this?" Which is how this country is fucking ran.
Yeah, with the proposal to privatize the post office. What?
What? And so
That
and
sent me, by the way, because I love the USPS so much. It's not okay how much I love them. Sorry, go ahead.
and I think why I end up loving characters like Galinda, and why I love the Barbarian movie and all of
Mm-hmm.
the well-assuming men in the Barbarian movie. And anytime you end up with a villain who meant well, is I'm like, "Oh, Galinda's walk among us and really do believe that they be in the right."
Yep.
And they're really good at convincing you that they're in the right because they're pretty and they have great poses and they flip their hair and you like them. I would have
Mm-hmm.
loved to have been Galinda's friend in high school. I've probably been 100 Galinda's friends. I've probably also been a Galinda and a Fiero where I'm like, "Can we just ignore this and have fun for a moment? I'm at silent disco." And there
Don't
again,
ruin Silent Disco, please.
no ruin silent disco for me. I'm just trying to have a good time in these trying times. And there are still days where I get wrapped up into that, where I'm like, can
Mm-hmm.
I just go to the Barbie movie and have fun and not have one man try to talk to me about it?
When I went out one weekend with my friends for our annual friend date for this big thing that we go to, we went out after, and everyone wants to dance, but my feet were hurting because I'm middle aged now and I didn't wear the right shoes to walk from point A to point B, but I didn't know there was going to be walking this whole thing. So I'm chair dancing because I love to dance, but I'm like, I am going to have to chair dance because my right leg is hurting so bad. And this guy won't take no for an answer.
And at that point, we should kick him.
and like multiple times was like, come on, come on. And then at one point comes over and starts trying to pull me up off the couch. Knows a complete sentence. And then sits next to me at the couch and starts dancing. And I'm like, I don't like how close he is. So my friend comes up to me and she's like, I need you to walk me to my car. That is a real friend. She did not need me to walk her to her car. She parked right out front. She knew I needed to get out of that situation. And then when I got back and I was watching him dance with somebody, I was like, that's how you would have danced with me. And I don't want you that close to my body. I don't know you.
I don't know you,
I
sir.
said no. And the more you pushed, the more I recoiled. And now I don't like, why don't you understand? Like, now you're gross to me.
Yeah, and now he's on TikTok going, "I don't understand because I was trying to be nice and make sure that she had a good time."
Like, having a good time means when I say no, please don't. And then my best friend was like, here's the thing about Julia. If she said no, don't fuck with her. She will just double down. Like, I love that you said that. Thank you. Like, that is how you friend.
And I think to bring it back to the moments before I hit record, when it's like, this is why
All the real good gems we missed.
all the real good gems you missed because you're not my personal friend. Um,
The listener, not me.
right. The listener, not Julia. Give Ariana her flowers and her Oscar and give her the grace to grow as a human and as a woman. And because I think it takes a very strong in themselves woman to play Glinda opposite of Cynthia Erivo's Elphaba, knowing what that's going to change for the film.
Yeah. I really do think Ariana did an amazing job. And I'm indifferent about her. I love her music, but I'm
Right.
indifferent about her acting because I remember her from Nickelodeon and I just wasn't really impressed with her Nickelodeon days.
Yeah.
With all that said, she did such an incredible job. The way that she and Cynthia play off each other was so beautifully done. It felt so natural, so real. They both had comedic moments that were delightful. I think Ariana more than Cynthia had comedic opportunities, and she crushed that. And then she also she was just so sincere in the role, but also understood that there was silliness to it, and it was just incredible. It'll be interesting to see who, if she gets nominated, who she's up against, and how that
Mhm.
plays out.
And when it comes to that scene in the Ozdust ballroom, I believe Galinda when Galinda says that she feels terrible. I believe
Yes.
that to be a turning point for Galinda. And I believe that what Galinda ends up going through is what a lot of former friends of mine ended up going through, where they were so close. They were
Mm-hmm.
so close to getting the plot. They were so close. And at the end of the day, they were still too scared to do it.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't feel supported enough to do it. Where were her and Elphaba gonna live? She's like, "I'm just gonna get on this broom and then what? I'm just gonna get on this broom and then what?" That's scary. Like, it's a
Yeah.
scary position. And Elphaba, because Elphaba lived a very different life, was like, "Well, fuck,
We'll figure it out.
I've been through scary before.
Mm-hmm.
I've been alone before. It's gonna be fine."
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's why at the end of the day, I end up with so much love and forgiveness for Galinda, and then I guess by an extension, Ariana Grande. Because it does take a lot of emotional depth to pull that off.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't always know if Galinda, the character on stage, has had that kind of emotional depth.
Journey.
Like, I don't know if I always got that.
Okay.
Um, I think it's really easy to boil down the friendship of Elphaba and Galinda to different, very different people who had two very different set of ideals. But I think that when we do that, we underestimate how close Galinda actually was to being on the right side of it all.
Oh, that's interesting because my takeaway is again, she just didn't do the work.
Yeah. And it's a fear response, I think, when people don't do the work.
Hmm. Like she was really good at making Alphaba feel like the work was happening.
Yeah.
And then given the opportunity to support Alphaba, she chose not to.
Yeah. There was an interesting TikTok I saw where people said that probably because it was at the end of the movie and the movie was long, so we had all stopped picking apart their facial expressions, that when they're winding up that staircase
Mhm.
to the balloon, I
Mhm.
think,
Mhm.
that tower,
Yeah.
um, Cynthia Erivo is doing that with such confidence. She doesn't care how high they're climbing. She's only looking ahead. She knows what the course is and she's set on it. And Ariana did such a brilliant job being like, Galinda's wavering because she's like, oh my God, we're really high up. Oh my God, like there are people chasing us. Oh my God, this guy has a hold of my leg. Like, and again, it's that really good balancing of the comedy and the heartbreak in Galinda that I'm like, give the entire cast their trophies. Because last year you pissed me so off with the Oscars. I said I'd never be back because you said out loud that fantasy and comedy have no place in award ceremonies. So what are you going to do with Wicked? What are you going to do? Because it's comedy, it's music, it's fantasy. There's a fucking lion at some point or a lion clock. I don't know. Not a
We'll find
lion, a dragon.
Yeah, we'll find out in January.
Like there's talking animals, all of it. What the fuck are you going to do with Wicked? And why? And why I asked you, were the Oscars more open to comedy and fantasy when it came to The Lord of the Rings than they ever were when it came to the Barbie and probably Wicked? Ain't that something? Ain't that something? So many men in a fellowship in the woods trying to find a piece of jewelry.
I think part of the reason why I don't fully believe that Galinda was willing to grow and change and that she felt sincere in her relationship with Elphaba is the scene where she goes from Galinda to
Mm,
Glinda.
hmm.
Because the way that people just sort of shrug off that she's like, I will now go by Glinda in honor of our missing professor. And everyone's like, okay. And then goes back to like whatever they were doing. And she was like, that's not the response you were supposed to give me. That's where I was like, yeah, this is, you didn't actually, you're not actually in solidarity. You're still in show.
But then I can't remember. Is it right after that happens? Maybe it's right after. No, because
Say it.
Fiora's there at that point.
Okay.
Um, right before that happens, she says, Fiora's been thinking. It's like I don't even know him. But even though I don't even and even though I don't think he's perfect anymore, I still want him. And I think it's tiny things like that where I'm like, you're so close, girl. If you just keep
Yeah.
pulling the string, if you just, but I don't, I think it's dangerous to discount when people make choices out of fear and then you go, shit, they never cared about me at all. And it's like, well, it because Chris said it during his episode too. Because I said, part of the reason I cried during Defying Gravity is because I'm so frustrated at the ones who haven't come as far as I have, but still want to take up space in my brain and my heart. And Chris was like, you have to meet people where they're at. And she was so close. And then at the end of the day, she's like, this is one step too scary.
With that said, though, there is a point where it's like, okay, I hear what you're saying.
Hmm.
How many more centuries are we going to go by offering that comfort? Because we've known for a long time that these systems aren't good and they're bad. And we as Black women have been standing in front of white women forever saying, hey, all I'm asking is that you make this one right choice. It's going to help us. And then in the long run, it's also going to help you. It's going to help all of us. But it helps us and you, not just you, versus white women choosing what's just helping them. So, like, for me as a Black woman, I can't always give that grace and understanding because I've only been on this planet for 40 years. And the amount of times that has happened to me where I'm like, I just asked one time that you think about both of us and not just you, and you still chose just you. And that's hard. and you're going to, and so it took me many years to accept the fact that you can only do that for so long before you have to walk away from that, because it's not going to be good. It's not going to end well. Like that's the answer. Is it's not going to end well, as we've seen coming through what's happening now currently. And like the friend that reminds me of Glinda, multiple times I've stood in front of her and said, I just need you to choose both of us this one time. And she always chose her, and she's never ever. And so that's the part where I'm just like, it's hard for me to give that kind of grace and understanding, because my lived experience tells me that the women who are not like me are always going to choose them over us.
Well, and you know what my fatal flaw is? If it had been Fiero that pulled that shit and got too scared at the 11th hour, I'd be like, burn him at the stake. We
Yes.
knew he'd do that. But because Belinda's a girl, she's one of my girlies. I'm like, oh, I'll give her one more chance, because what always gets me in trouble is I forgive women without even thinking that deeply on it. I'll just be like, you know what? You're right. You're a sister in the cause, and sometimes the cause is hard. When am I going to learn my lesson?
And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that, but we know now that white women owned just as many black women as white men did. We know now. Somebody finally decided to gather that data and put it in a report, and then someone peer reviewed it and validated that report. So the root of the problem is always going to be white women will not choose us. They will choose me. And so until we can work through that, I don't know if there will ever be unity within the feminist movement in creating equity, in creating equality. There needs to be ownership from non-Black people in the way that they have aided in anti-Blackness before that is the start of the work, before we can actually get any groundwork done. Because like when we read Good Girls Revolt a year or so ago, and like the consensus amongst the white women were like, I can't believe these Black women won't help us with this case. And you're just like, but none of you offered to help them get more money or jobs that are outside of cleaning. So like, why? So you have done nothing for them, and you're asking them to do something for you without offering to bring them up as well.
I gave you this twin size bed space in the room, and I was hoping you'd put in a good word with Madame Horrible for me. It's
Right.
brilliant. It's brilliant how they direct John Chu, sir.
He's
Call
very
me.
good.
You're very good. Call me any day. We'll just
Yes.
dissect this movie and all of the ways that you made sure that you were intentional about the story that's actually being told during Wicked. And it is a story of who gets power and who gets a wicked reputation is usually not even in the control of those who are deemed wicked.
He didn't get nominated for a Golden Globe, right?
I don't know. John Chu, did you get nominated? You
I
should
love that you're
have.
asking him like he's on the call with us.
I'm going to send this to him. I'm going to send it. You know, I love to talk to people that I would love to talk to me back when I clip this on TikTok. It's worked
I
one
know.
time.
Well, Rosie's amazing. So.
Rosie's amazing. Oh, it's technically worked twice because of Rosie and Katie Maloney.
Okay, it's nominated for Best Picture, but I'm looking for director. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm gonna be that person.
He'll get a Golden Globe if it gets Best Picture, right? Like he'll get a trophy. I don't know who gets a trophy for what.
He is not nominated for Best Director. Wow, this category is
Racism.
very white.
Racism. Okay, well, I'm mad about that. I'm mad because he did. And I told Chris, I go, there are certain things
Like
about
two of these guys I can't even tell apart from their pictures.
Because I told Chris, I go, there are things that I think hit harder in the Wicked movie, probably because I can see their facial expressions, than it ever hit for me in
On the stage.
on the stage, on the fun little romp musical that I would see from 80 yards back. Like, yeah, that's a crime. I'm mad. My future friend John Chu, I guess I'm going to move us to, because this became its own episode. Who would
Yes.
have thought? It's the only time I've gotten to talk about the election on a hot mic. So I'll put Glinda the Good and the election as the title. Um, oh, I don't know if I should put election. Will that get me arrested? We got to be worried about our
I
hashtags now.
know.
Shit.
Just release it on TikTok in 10-minute increments. They won't know.
Yeah, I'm like, one day they're gonna put my face on a fucking poster and people are gonna say that I deserved whatever happened to me because of this fucking podcast. It's fine. I guess my greatest takeaway from Galinda, as it usually is whenever we talk about a complicated white woman, is that I have to, at some point, I have to start drawing more lines between empathy and understanding how we got here and actual forgiveness and forgetting. It's gotta happen because I'm so quick to just be like, I love being hurt by women, so this is fine.
Yeah.
I really
Don't
won't. I
don't
really
mind me. Just
don't
hurt
mind me.
me.
Don't mind me. Just let me down one more time. Give me another statistic about the election, please. I'm so mad and hurt. I have been taking all of this personally. I don't know why. I don't know why I thought that I was leading the movement. I was like all of a sudden I'm Moses not being able to go to the promised land, but I did take everything so personally.
Well, I told you what I thought. I thought my life was going. 2016 made sense because my life had started hitting shit in like the summer of 2016. My life fully derailed. So it's like, of course the country's derailing. My life is derailing. And this year I was like, oh, my life is going so much better. Like, I'm actually doing well for the first time in my life. Of course the country's going to make the right choice.
Because at the end of the day, it's all about me and
Because,
Julia,
exactly. We did exactly what Galinda did, less with less harm because we made the right decision. But we
but more
still only,
Delulu.
but we thought about ourselves. Because in this scenario, choosing ourselves was actually choosing to protect everybody.
Wasn't that something? Julia, what was your lesson from Galinda?
My lesson from Galinda, I don't know if you're gonna like
It's
it.
mine. She's a complicated white woman.
My lesson from Galinda was actually more of a reminder that white women are just as responsible for the patriarchy.
Well, why would I not be on board with that when I know that?
I mean, I don't know if that's a lesson that you wanted me to say.
Oh, you think we're all of a sudden like this will be what makes me viral on what Reddit is like the white women? Or it's like when on Glamorous Trash, I was like, Natalie, don't say the word turf, don't say the word turf. And then I said it 4 fucking times.
Because how could you avoid it? Because I feel like everyone was so moved by the movie, and rightfully so, because it's stunningly beautiful. The performances are amazing. People don't have Instagram and Snapchat face. Like, it is like, these teeth are real. Like, it's stunning. It's just incredibly talented people who look like somebody that you would walk next to on the street, but also are beautiful. You know what I mean? um Costumes, holy shit,
Holy
amazing.
shit.
And everyone's moved, everyone's weeping, everyone's like, oh my god, we are in Oz. Like, oh my god, here's all the things. And I'm sitting in the movie theater going, oh my god, how many times am I gonna have to sit through white women always choosing themselves and not giving a fuck whether, as friends, I live or die?
Right. And that's why I didn't leave the movie theater right away because it's not the exact line of thinking, but it's a partner to it. All
Yeah.
I thought was, God damn it. When will they listen to me? Because everything's about me. When will they listen to me and fucking understand how unlimited we could? I'm stuck on the unlimited word.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that's what. So here's the thing. I thought that my word for 2025 was going to be movement.
Oh.
Yeah, because we got to shake and shimmy for our dinner. Um, but maybe it's unlimited.
Yeah, maybe. Because it is really hard. Like,
It's
when
hard.
I leave my colorful queer group and go walk into my middle-aged cis hetero group, I walk away not, I mean, I love my friends in that group. We're still friends for a reason. At the same time, it's a reminder, it always serves as a reminder that I've done the work. I wasn't afraid to be alone. I wasn't afraid of taking and that's probably why I'm risk averse in a lot of other ways, because I took such a big risk in being like, I will be a single mom
Yeah.
and figure it out. We'll just figure it out. Um, and I think not everyone has that ability. And don't get me wrong, there were many years I had to fight in family court. There were a lot of scenarios and situations. I'm just like, I really hate that that's part of my history, and I wish I didn't have to go through that. Like, at the same time, the cis hetero world is so toxic, and I don't understand choosing to remain in that if it makes you feel bad.
Every day. Every moment of every day.
And bringing children up in that.
Well, and also, like, the way that we've been conditioned to feel bad and then immediately go, "But it is what it is." Like,
Yeah,
this
like
is normal.
I have a friend who's been telling me for over a year her mental health has been shit. My mental health has just
Yeah,
been so
mine
bad.
too.
My mental health has just been so bad. And I'm over it. So after like the third time they had said it, I was just like, okay, every time we hang out, you say this. And nothing is being done. Is nothing being done because you don't feel like you can do something?
Mhm.
Or is nothing being done because it means it's going to cause and create radical change in your family unit and you don't want to find out what that change is? And it's not judgment. I'm not judging her, like, to each their own. But I remember what it was like to live in really deep, bad mental health
Yeah.
situation. And I don't like who I was back then. I made a lot of choices that I regret. Made a lot of friends I shouldn't have probably have been friends with because they encouraged bad behavior. Um, but I guess for me, when my partner was like, this isn't what I want, I was like, cool, I'm out. You don't have to tell me twice.
Right. God. And yeah, I don't
And like, I'm not a fighter in that way.
first off, I think we should end this very heavy Glinda conversation with what was your favorite part of the movie? I think you'll hate my answer.
So I actually have two that I think about all the time. One is the scene of Fiero and Elphaba in the forest after the poppies do their thing and they kind of escape. I think about that scene all the time.
So does
And I
Fiero.
well, I do love a gay man. Um, or I guess Fiero's bisexual. Whatever. I love queer men. Okay. Um, and but yeah, I'm like, I just want that scene to
Mhm.
be like streamable somewhere that's not like someone recording it and putting it on TikTok. Um, and then the other one I think about all the time is when Elphaba arrives with her sister and she's seeing all this for the first time and just having big emotions and feelings about it, but she's not jealous. And then to be given the golden ticket and that validation that she does belong.
My favorite part is when Galinda's trying so hard to change her ugly throat into a ball gown. Ball
Yeah.
gown.
Ball gown.
Specifically, my favorite part is where she goes, "Hung," and she starts humming and just moving like she's in a
Oh yeah,
trance.
that's such a great scene. Yeah.
And then she goes, "Ball gown," and it doesn't work. And Elphaba goes, "Do you want me to help you?" And she goes, "No, just wear it. It's pretty." I love that part. I also really want to own the giant Jeff Goldblum concrete bust of his head. So
Oh my gosh.
if anyone would like to, John Chu, if you would like to send that to my home,
My birthday
my
is
brother
soon.
is Christmas. Uh, what does Galinda and Wicked make you want to manifest for the future?
White women doing the work.
Isn't that it? Yeah, that's mine too. It's my
Legitimately doing the work and not just like, oh, let's be friends and then vote for themselves
Yeah.
versus the we.
Stephanie reminds me of this every time. As you know, my current fear fixation is that I can't actually drive to Chicago.
Yes. We're
And
working through it though. We're
we're
working
working
through it.
through it. It's happening. It'll just have to be perfect weather and sunny. And Stephanie goes, "You do this every time. And then you'll be in the middle of your drive to Chicago and you'll realize that you're capable of anything and this wasn't actually hard. You were just told it was hard."
Mhm.
And I think that white women should embrace the idea that we've always been told that a life without a man is hard.
Yes. That's
And
accurate.
yet, and yet, they
Mhm.
don't make it any easier
Mm-mm.
when they're around.
Mm-mm.
And so just try it. What if you just tried disagreeing with them once a week? I've been telling friends when they start dating a new guy, I go, you have to tell him no 7 times and you have to track like, and they have to be for different reasons. Like, it can't just be like sex or like blah, blah, blah. I go, you have to disagree with them 7 times. You have to track their facial movements, the tone of their voice, their body language, everything. And that will tell you everything that you need to know.
Mhm.
What is going to happen when you challenge them. So just try it. What if you just tried it? What if you just tried it? Just tried.
Just taste it.
So, and my other manifestation is that I make being a menace to men and challenging them look so sexy and cool that everyone wants to do it
Yeah, I love that.
because it's so
Because
sexy, so cool.
I think you're absolutely right. I think people do believe that it's very scary. I remember I had a friend one time who knew she needed to leave her partner. It wasn't a safe and healthy situation. And she was like, "How did you do it? How are you single parent?" And I was like, literally don't know. Just
I
one
wish
day
I
it was
knew.
like, "Oh, this is ending and I'm just gonna have to figure it out." And I did, and I'm for the better. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, blah blah," all this stuff. And then, she was like, "Yeah, I think I can, I'm pretty sure I think I can do da, da, da." That was in 2014.
Oh, that's 10 years.
And as far as I know, she's still with that person.
Yeah.
And it's like it can be really scary to think about the future, period.
Yeah.
Oh, you got a new job? What is that going to mean for you? It's scary. You're getting on a plane to go across the Atlantic? That's scary. You have to move to a new city? That's scary.
Mhm.
Someone in your life is no longer going to be in your life? That is scary. Figure it out and find support and resources to help you because that's what we do. Can't run this life alone, but you can run it without a partner.
Right. Or the patriarchy, it turns out. They keep us in a fear mindset for a reason, like, at the end of the day. And that's also something that Glinda just hasn't grasped hold of yet and maybe gets a little bit more clearer to her in the second part. They keep us in a fear state for a reason because they're hoping it works just long enough for them to continue to be also so mediocre at being awful. Like, this is all like, I wrote in a scholarship application today, and Rose said it during the Tell Me Lies episode, where we're like, misogyny is funny. Misogyny is so unserious. We should be making fun of this all the time. We should be.
Mhm. Mhm.
Elon Musk is melting, and we're not talking about it enough. Why is he melting? Why is his entire body decaying in front of our eyes? Like,
I also think it's really funny how all of these celebrities are accidentally outing themselves as being Musk supporters.
idiots, Joe Bros. What the hell? You could just say nothing. You all are so mediocre at this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Julia, thank you for being here. Thank you for educating me as a white woman who forgives other white women because I only have so much menace in my heart to give, and it goes all to misogyny
Mhm.
and the men who drive me crazy.
Mhm.
Where can people shop and support you?
If you would like to support a woman-owned small business,
Put a different qualifier before woman because white women have a lot of guilt. So if you put that qualifier, They'll
If
shop
you would
there.
like to own a Black-owned woman small business,
Not own, Julia, if you would like to shop.
if
I'm
you would
leaving
like
all this in. Don't let them own your business. What are you doing?
if you would like to support and shop
There it is.
my work
Uh-huh. As a
as a I am a Black woman in America who has gifts and talents
yeah.
when it comes to making candles and art. And I would love for you to shop my website. Good news. The website is reopened as of January 15th, and you can shop the new line. There is going to be feminine rage candles
Shut
that you
up.
can purchase.
I didn't even know this.
Yes, because Kelly and I have been very quiet about working on it. I have collaborated with Kelly Peralt from Pleasant Creative Company, and we've designed a line of feminine rage candles, all literary, all writers, all women writers who famously were told they'd be nothing without men, but yet have outlasted all of those men they were told to marry.
I can't wait to see what the Marie Shelley one smells like.
So you can shop my website. If I have figured out how to switch it to prosandglow.com, you can do it there. If I haven't, it's juliawashingtonproductions.com. Because, tech is not my strong suit. I'm an artist. Or to really guarantee that you know what's going on in the Pros and Glow world, just follow us on Instagram at Pros and Glow. And then if you think that I'm a delight and would love to follow my unhinged journey on the internet, you can find me, the Julia Washington, on Instagram and probably still TikTok. I'm sure my profile won't disappear, just maybe the app might.
You can find me at Men I've Tolerated Pod on Instagram, Natalie K124 on Instagram, and the app that might be banned or not banned, who could say time is a construct and so are laws. um, Follow us at To All the Men I've Tolerated Before on Patreon. There's free stuff. Maybe there will be paid stuff again. I
Oh,
was on break.
can I plug one more thing?
Plug the Candle Club.
Yes. So Natalie is a member of our candle club, and basically what that is. So in the top, Natalie had said I host Jolly Pop's book club. We read book to screen adaptations, and every month I make a candle that partners with our book club pick of the month. And so every month you get a candle on your doorstep that is unique and inspired by a literary goddess of some kind, meaning the book that we've read.
Yeah.
Because in 2025, we're mostly just sticking to women.
Yep.
We read a few gay guys this year in 2024. 2025, we're only reading women. Just no political reason, just because these are books I've wanted to read and I'm forcing the book club to read them.
All will be linked in the show notes because I would never make you type something into a web browser like it's 1998.
Yes!
The future, baby.
Woo!
Hyperlinks. And remember, tolerators, you don't have to smile through anything you're tolerating, including wanting to hold space for how majestic it was just watching Defying Gravity, but instead you're thinking of all the white women or women in general who let you down. Smiles are for joy.